Hi, I'm Cynthia. I'm an artist, and I'm here to talk about my experience as a first year animation student at the One Academy. For the fourth episode, I'll be talking about design fundamentals. This was actually my favorite class because our lecture was really fun. We submitted a total of 5 assignments for this class. This was one of the subjects which I put more effort into because I had no idea what we were going to do. But basically, we went through the design elements. For the first assessment, we had to do an imitation of photographers' works using dots and lines, and I chose to go with Fred Herzog's photography. So I'll be going through my journals for each of my submissions. I actually made templates for each of my journals just to show a bit more effort. And this is our first assessment. Here's a list of what we're supposed to submit. We had to do analysis on design elements, and I used different artworks for reference and studies. We also have class exercises like this and research questions. I think the lecturer just wanted us to see how other artists utilize design elements in their works. We also had to take observational photos that show lines. Then we have the research and development. I mainly talked about the photographer Fred Herzog and chose my favorite out of his works. I ended up choosing his self-portrait for my final submission. I also included some practice sheets before I started on the final work. I played around with pens, markers, and different shading techniques to bring out the values of the photo. Here is a progression of my work, and this is the final outcome. I got an A for this one. Then we did a super quick self-evaluation by the end. For the second project, we focused on shapes. Similar to the previous one, we had to do analysis, class exercises, and research questions. We also learned about shape relations. We got to design icons of anything that can be found in the supermarket and apply at least one shape relationship. Then we had to do 5 geometric and 5 organic trees while applying at least 2 shape relationships. We did a few more exercises, simplifying the images using shapes and identifying shape relationships in each illustration. Moving on to the project, we had to select 3 chess pieces, make our own design using shapes, and add shape relationships. I had a hard time choosing a theme, but luckily I was inspired during our history class. We were talking about Greek, Roman, and Egyptian art at the time. I ended up going with Egyptian theme because I think there were a lot of design elements I could use with it. I wanted my chess pieces to look like this painting, where they're all looking to one side. I drew out the shapes first, sketched the characters, and broke them down into pieces. I used poster paint and mixed some hues here and there to bring out the color that I wanted. Here's the process, and this is the final outcome. For the third project, we had to design 4 characters and apply 1 color scheme for each, because for this one, we specifically focused on colors. We had to do a color wheel using poster paint. I was originally planning on using my old characters, but I decided to make new ones too. I chose my old robot design and ended up doing 3 new robots as well. I had to express their characters using colors. I named the first character Rusty Ranger. He's inspired by the Iron Giant and Baymax. The second character was mainly inspired by C-3PO and Leia combined, but I think I also added a bit of Vader there on the map. His name is Robot Richie. The next robot design is named Romantic Rona. She's actually named after my friend, and her look is inspired by
Alita from Battle Angel Alita and Ava from Ex Machina.
The fourth character is named Red Rover. His silhouette is inspired by E.T. and his look is inspired by General the Wolf Brigade suit. Then I started experimenting with a color scheme. I wanted to use a complementary color scheme on Ranger to show his soft and tough persona, and I chose the first variation. Then for Richie, I wanted to use a green analogous color scheme. I ended up choosing the first variation to depict wealth instead of sickness. As for Rona, I used a triadic color scheme. I chose the second variation for this one. Then for Rover, I applied a tetradic color scheme. I went with the first variation because I liked the green on him, and it brought out a good contrast that made him look dangerous. Overall, I had to balance out these colors so my characters look harmonious. Here's my process, and this is the final outcome. For the fourth project, we focused on texture. We had to do a texturized version of classical paintings, thus the title Old and New. And we also had to create texture using paper, making it smooth, rough, grainy, and spiky. And moving on to the final artwork, I originally wanted to do Fragonard's The Swing. However, the required size was A4, and I just thought that the swing would look better in A3 instead of A4. And my lecturer agreed as well, so I ended up choosing Fragonard's Young Girl Reading. I used acrylic paint for the base and focused on adding texture to the hairband, the ruffles, the yellow dress, the ribbons, the pocketbook, and the armchair. Here's the process, and this is the final outcome. For the last assessment, we're supposed to make a 3D polycat toy and dress it up with our own design based on the culture that we want it to have. Of course, I chose Filipino culture. For the class exercise, we had to do a prototype of the cat using block paper. This looks so bad because the paper wasn't thick enough and the glue kept getting all over it. But it was good practice for the final. So I did a bit of research on Philippine history, but I was already sure that I wanted to do a tribal, indigenous / pre-colonial look for my cat. Just to bring out the silhouette, I also added the salakot, so it's like a hat on top of the cat, just to give it a cute look. I used Apawang Od as inspiration, especially her tattoos, as well as Lapu-Lapu, who is a Filipino warrior. And I named the cat Napuwang Od. Here are my designs. I ended up choosing the second variation, mainly because it has better contrast and values. Here's my process. I painted the tattoos on the parts separately before putting the cat together just to get all the tight spots, because finishing is also a criteria for this one. Here are materials that I bought from Yi Button to accessorize and clothe my cat. I painted patterns on the cloth as well, and when I finished painting everything, I started putting them together. For the final touch, I decided to add a shield and a sword just to make him look more like an indigenous warrior. Here is the final outcome of the polycat toy from all angles. I don't have the cat with the department because they did an exhibition of a number of cats, I think last May, and here's where mine was sitting. I think lecturers focus on how creative we could be given the limitations and guidelines that they gave us. I tried to limit my imagination because I was a bit worried about executing my ideas, but when I talked to the lecturers about it and asked for their advice, they're actually so supportive, and they even give you tips on how to make things even crazier. A lot of my classmates are more daring and adventurous when it comes to that, like especially with the cat. There were a lot more that stood out to me and had so much personality. I learned how to do more traditional and 3D stuff. 3D was not on my list before, like handcrafted 3D. I could do Blender or Maya, but I never thought I'd feel so fulfilled building a cat toy. I also learned to be a bit more comfortable with different mediums like pens, markers, and paint. I also enjoyed doing most of the assessments for this class. So overall, I think I just learned how to have fun for this one. I think I got an A or A- for my assessments, but before I show my final grade, I still have to talk about the second part of design fundamentals, which is CGL workshop. Stay tuned.